there's a huge divine feminine movement, and I'm absolutely in love with the feminine and revere and worship the feminine. And I also have critiques. What I see is there's this big movement to, I want to be the queen. Well, what does that really mean? I know God has a bad connotation for a lot of people who've had it jammed down their throat and a lot of rules and things that didn't make sense. I started my life as an atheist, but in 25 years of plant medicine, I have no doubt. I don't believe in God. I know God. So if you're living in the world and you're denying something that is true and the fundamental nature of that truth that moves in you, as you, through you, and beyond you, I don't think you can experience the real full spectrum of the healing. There's going to be so much that you're going to leave off the table, and your life just will not be nearly as rich.
Is there something that was revealed to you in a session, in a journey, that you're still integrating now?
The deepest truths are the hardest to actually abide by. Now, I have a formula to assess whether you're telling the truth or not.
Truth barometer?
Truth barometer. So here's the formula.
Welcome to the Healing and Human Potential podcast. Today's conversation is packed with juicy topics like feminine and masculine dynamics, the power of psychedelics and self-discovery, as well as giving you practical strategies to work through resistance. You asked for this guest, and we have him here today, Aubrey Marcus, who's an entrepreneur, an author, and the founder of On It. We're going to explore deeper truths revealed around relationships, entrepreneurship, and Aubrey shares some of his most profound lessons and insights that he's learned along the way. Let's dive into this highly requested conversation. I see you, Aubrey, as a man's man with the cigars and the weightlifting, the tattoos, and I see you as somebody who's deeply in touch with his feelings, has the courage to be vulnerable, which to me is just one expression of the healthy masculine. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, how did you open? How did you start developing your emotional mastery as a man?
My mom. My mom has loved me unconditionally from the day I was born, and same with my grandma. And you talk about blessings or privileges or whatever, but to have a mom that loves you like my mom loves me, it's indescribable what that'll do for a man. She also had a, well-developed masculine side of her own. She was a professional tennis player, went to the semifinals of Wimbledon, lost to Billie Jean King that year. So she understands athletics. She understands being fierce and the dedication needed to get better.
Yeah.
But on the other side, no matter what, no matter where I went, what I did, how I felt, she just loved me literally unconditionally. And that's a word that people throw around, but until you experience it, it's just a fiction.
Yeah.
But I've really gotten to live that, and that's allowed a lot of my own feminine side to flourish.
Mm-hmm. Has that always been the case, or did you need to develop more relationship with your emotions as a man?
I think it set me up with a good foundation. And then, of course, all of the practices that I do, they unearth the truth of your feelings. So I've been on the psychedelic medicine path for 25 years. And in those 25 years, whether it's breathwork, which always brings the tears and emotions, or whether it's, ayahuasca, or whether it's in the Wachuma from the Chavin tradition, or Bufo from the Siri tradition, or whatever the great traditions I've been working with, these medicines really help open your heart and your feeling body, because anything else is actually not who we are. We are emotional beings. And there's a place where it's important, I think, for the masculine to be able to bracket those emotions. Like if things are going awry, you have to be able to just take decisive action and then feel what's necessary later. Mm-hmm. Like if things come into like significant conflict, like I was attacked with my fiance at a time by 4 guys who surrounded my car, and it's not time for me to be emotional. At that point, it's time for me to fight. I was walking across the street. This guy got hit by a truck and smashed his head on the pavement. It's not time for me to cry and be out of control. I had, ripped off my shirt, tied it around his head, held him, had somebody call the ambulance. Like, you got to be able to do both. But then certain other times, you just got to allow yourself to fully feel. So I think that's the fully developed masculine is someone, and the word I use for that is warrior poet. There's times to be a warrior, there's times to be a poet, and there's times you can be both. But to develop both sides, I think that's the destiny of every man, really.
Yeah. And that's the full range. Like that's the healthy expansion. And so for men, I think it's important to have examples of different men that are in touch with their feelings to really see that. But for guys that are either new to this work or just wanting to go deeper, but they're hitting up against their own resistance, what would you tell them?
They're going to need to utilize one of these tools, and everybody calls them medicines, but they're really technologies, and it doesn't require psychedelics. So one thing I can unequivocally recommend, breathwork. Another thing I can unequivocally recommend, ecstatic dance. Unequivocally recommend sensory deprivation float tanks. Meditation is beautiful, but it's very hard to get into unless you know the reward and the state you're getting to, because otherwise you just feel like you're not doing anything and you're not getting anywhere most of the time. But if you can hone that craft, you can also get there that way. But the sensory deprivation tank really helps drop you into that meditative state. And the breath work, if you really send it, you're going to feel what needs to be felt, and we've guided breath work and Fit for Service for 6 years. And I've almost never seen a man, no matter how many tattoos and how tough they are, not really releasing a lot of tears.
Yeah. And then once you open one time, you start feeling lighter, more open-hearted, present, alive. And then the reward says more.
That's it.
Yeah. And then to have a real beautiful, healthy relationship where you are available to your emotions, it just gets more deep. So that's also the reward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and then, other people would say, I was born a double Pisces and all of these different star signals. But I think that really ultimately, I don't give that too much weight. And it could be true because I do represent some of those the watery nature of my emotions. But I think truly it's available to everybody. And you just got to feel it and feel the benefit of it. And just understand how much more of life is available to you when you're able to tap into those more sensitive areas.
Yeah. And I think having examples helps other men say, oh, okay, that I can still, because there's going to be a variety of different types of healthy masculine, at least then to find as a tuning fork, what's my authentic expression? Because maybe I've been trained to not feel, but as we start kind of thawing out some of those layers and seeing other examples, I think more men will be finding their way with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to life with armor, then you're not only preventing yourself from challenge, you're preventing yourself from bliss. It's a callus that goes over the entire sensory body. So you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself and you're not going to be able to feel your emotions. So, this idea of it's important to hold your armor. Yeah, it's maybe important to be able to put up the shield every once in a while, but fundamentally, all armor is not, it doesn't differentiate. It's not like, oh, I'm just not going to feel the bad thing, but I'm going to feel all the good things. It doesn't work that way. Armor just prevents you from the feeling tone of life and prevents you from stepping into this universal love story that we're really in.
It's so innocent, that armor. It's just a protection mechanism.
For sure.
Yeah. So then bringing even compassion with ourselves if we feel that protection mechanism come up.
Yeah.
And I think just on the planet, we're waking up to honoring the feminine and coming into more balanced ways of being. We have a long way to go, but it's happening. And I see you as somebody who has reverence for the feminine. And now I hear through your mom, as soon as you say my mom, I feel your love for her transmitted. And so thank you for doing that work. Thank your mom. I think more examples of this is important. How do you see the divine feminine? How do you hold or context that?
There's a huge divine feminine movement. And obviously I'm absolutely in love with the feminine and revere and worship the feminine. And I also have critiques of that movement. And what I see is there's this big movement to, I want to be the queen. I want to be the queen. Well, what does that really mean? Because there's Queen Elizabeth. And that was a king with a pussy, right? That's what that was. That's why she didn't take a husband to rule with her, because she was the one ruling. And if you have two kings in the house, it's typically not going to work. There's going to be a power struggle about who's leading the way. And you can have a way where you can flip and both can take that role at certain times. But I think there's a conflation between queen and ruling queen, which is really a king. And so there's an aspect of the fully developed feminine, which is in maximum receptivity and is creating this atmosphere of love and peace and forgiveness and joy. And then the masculine element actually leads through that, but requires the nourishment of the feminine. So, and it doesn't mean that the man has to be the king and the woman has to be the queen, but I think we need to disambiguate these words so that we actually understand what a queen is. A king is there to be in service of the kingdom, including the queen, to be in absolute devotion and service. The queen is there to be in devotion to the king's service to all. And so it works in this kind of bilateral way. But I think it's important to recognize that a queen just isn't a woman king.
Yeah.
That there's actually a difference. And it doesn't mean, again, like that you can't swap and play both sides and enjoy the polarity that way. But I think there's more actual soft femininity available in the goddess and in the feminine empowerment movement. Like the most powerful thing that I experience is the softest thing.
Yeah.
When I can find the softest thing, then my whole body can relax.
Yeah.
And then I can heal and be restored in that nature. So, I think that's a part of, there's so much beauty in what this is. And I think just the understanding of what are you actually looking for? Are you looking to lead? Are you looking to have the kingship quality? It's beautiful if you are, but don't confuse yourself into thinking that that's what the queen archetype really is.
I want to unpack this more because this is a new way of holding it for me. And when you were talking about the softest thing, I just was seeing a drop of water on a rock over time creates a hole.
Totally.
And I love the softness and the power in that softness, and that love is dynamic and fierce, and that's powerful. I want to unpack more because I'm thinking about leading is what I'm hearing is more of the masculine. What are some other qualities?
One way to describe this is circle and line. Okay. So a line has telos and direction. It has a direction that it's going. A circle is all about the ever-present now, the infinite now, and the environment that you're in. So circles have this very egalitarian, no structure of leadership. Everybody's voice is the same. There's so much beauty to the circle. And the masculine quality is the line, which is saying, well, we don't want to just stay in this feeling thing in a forever ayahuasca ceremony. We want to actually move forward and integrate this into our life.
Yeah.
So the right relationship is some balance, and where the masculine represents the line, which is forward movement, and the feminine represents the circle. Now, the shadow of the line is the line might not ever be feeling what's actually happening in the moment, might not be attuned to what's happening in the circle, might be so focused on leadership that they've lost the qualities of the circle. And the circle, the shadow of the circle is that you just stay in this feeling experience and you're not actually going anywhere. You're just retracing your own trauma and your own feelings over and over and over again. But when you combine them, then it forms a spiral. So a line and a circle combined form a spiral. So you're feeling always, but you're feeling in this ever escalating, spiraling movement forwards.
I like that. And so the way that you hold it is really the intention to develop the masculine and feminine within you or within everyone.
Of course.
Okay.
And then also find the ways that your relationship can accentuate that dance, right?
Tell me more.
There's certain elements of like where I will be more extremely polarized in the where are we going? What are we doing? How do we chart this next path forward? And so I'll be, in a relationship, if I'm super focused on that, then I need some more support within the dyad to be in the circle.
So in some ways you're saying that the relationship can support balance and harmony.
Right. It allows you to be, if you're all on your own, let's say you're all on your own, you need to have a really, really well-developed sense of both and be like almost in an equilibrium between your masculine and feminine for most of your life. Because you need to be able to feel everything that's going on, and you need to also be able to move forward. So if you're alone, you both of those have to be expressed in balance. If you're in a partnership, it can allow you to express one polarity more. So the feminine could be more in the feeling tone of the circle. The masculine can be more in the line. But together, holistically, you create balance in the dyad. So it actually allows you to express either more of your masculinity or more of your femininity.
I'm thinking about that's the relational component. And then there's also business.
Right.
How do you see that with more complexity? Say in my marriage, I have more of the feminine, but in my business, I'm leading more in my masculine. Like how does that also work with team structure?
Yeah. I mean, I think having well-developed, capabilities on both sides, it's a big advantage, because if, ultimately, I think a relationship should have an overarching mission that you're in together, right? What is your collective mission? I call this the whole mate level of relationship. So the role mate, or the roles you play, the soulmate, the ability to see each other. The whole mate is sharing a shared vision and facing a shared horizon. And so ideally, in my mind, in a relationship, you guys are facing the shared horizon and then having different roles and different ways that you actually are bringing about that shared vision. But then you may have your own individual quests and visions, which will require more masculinity. So like, for example, Vailana, she has the freedom to be in her wild feminine most of the time, because I can hold down the masculine qualities for the relationship. And then sometimes when she's doing her series or doing something else, she has to step into her masculine and lead a team and handle it. And I'm there to support in the background. But oftentimes at that point, I'll step into the role of the queen, which is, what do you need? Do you need do you need help? Do you need some body work? Do you need tea? Do you need some water? Like, if there's a very present mission for either partner, if you have that flexibility, then you can step into their story and help them write their story. And I think that's the healthiest level of relationship. But to just remember who's which role and not get confused. And it's fine to be both, but just understand which role is which and not get confused about what actually is being expressed at that time. So really, if any of this that I'm offering is just clarification of the fundamental masculine and the fundamental feminine, and how to use those energies to stay in balance and bring about the best relationship possible.
Yeah, I've not thought of it in this way. And I like that there's that shared the mission.
Yeah.
And how do you really use that to support greater service, greater wholeness and contribution in the world? Do you and Vi have a shared mission that you operate from?
Yeah, it's super important. And that shared mission is, first of all, to bring about what we believe, from Charles Eisenstein's nomenclature, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, a place where everybody can be more free and more loving and more connected to God. And so how do we help bring that about? Well, Vailana has her sound. I have my podcast. We have and then we're cumulatively together, building temples, that are like the old mystery schools, like the Eleusinian mysteries, or the Oracle at Delphi, or the Temple of Chavin, or the Temple of the Hathors. We're really focused on rebuilding these places where people can go to heal and experience what was always available in antiquity. You could make a pilgrimage to one of these temples, but these temples are now just ruins at best. They don't still hold they can, especially if you go with Matthias, then you can access the old magic of the old temples, so it's not like they don't still have the juice, they do, but they're all controlled by guards. They're not like accessible, except in the rarest occasions where you actually literally bribe the guards and they turn the other way while you do some weird shit in the temples. But, for the most part, I think that's another big shared vision. And so, we're looking to, bring those ancient traditions back.
Beautiful. I love hearing that. And I can see how that would call you forward as a couple to be in service, so you don't unconsciously have that creative energy go inward and sabotage the relationship.
Totally.
So that's beautiful. I'm going to take a lot from this and start feeling into my own marriage. Imagine having a fulfilling career, doing what you love, working from anywhere in the world, setting your own hours while making good money and a big impact. If that lights you up, then I'm super excited to share with you today's sponsor, the Institute for Coaching Mastery. This is my robust, accredited, year-long certification program for new or seasoned coaches, therapists, leaders, and those just looking to up-level their life in a profound way. We have an amazing community of students from all around the world who have really started their journey to expand with us both personally and professionally. And this experience is designed to give you the 3 things that you need to thrive. So first, you have all of the tools and support you need to move past what's been holding you back so that you can completely change the trajectory of your life. And then you learn how to masterfully and confidently facilitate transformation with your clients or your team, regardless of your niche. If you want to do health, business, relationship, or you just have no idea yet, we hold your hand through that. And then lastly, you'll receive my 6-figure and beyond signature roadmap that's customizable to meet you wherever you are. So whether you want to do high ticket sales, online marketing, or you just want to hit 6 figures without ever needing to go on social media, we've got you covered. And this truly is the most rewarding work in the world. We have new students now who have a waitlist of dream clients in under a year. We also have seasoned students who are doing $80,000 months. And this is really about creating lasting transformation from the inside out so that you can share your gifts and serve the world in all the ways that you're called to. And I've seen firsthand the power of what happens when you have the community to collaborate with, but you also have the right tools and resources to really thrive. And so whether you want to do your own personal development, you're wanting to become a coach, or you're just looking for a cutting edge approach to really grow your business, the Institute for Coaching Mastery is for you. You are held every single step of the way. And so if you want to get behind the scenes access to the Institute with 3 proven transformational tools for free to help you create the business and life you love, all you have to do is go to alyssanobriga.com/tools, or you can find us at alyssanobriga.com/apply now to see all the details and apply today. In terms of heterosexual relationships, you mentioned something earlier. What do you see the women play as a role that sabotages or limits the expression of the healthy masculine in partnership? Do you see any of those dynamics play out just to help bring more awareness?
For sure. I mean, I think you'll see a lot of times where, and this can happen on both sides.
Yeah.
But if there's any place where the feminine is kind of cutting off the masculine at the knees, so they're actually trying to step into something, but there's a subtle undercutting gesture, a subtle undercutting joke it's really an establishment of dominance in that place. And if there's any of this power struggle where people are trying to establish dominance, it's not going to work. And it can also happen with the masculine. The masculine can be intimidated by how powerful their partner is, and they could try to undermine that and squash it. And I've seen this play out in both directions. And, I think what's really at play there is a power struggle. And if you have a power struggle in your relationship is going to have a lot of difficulty. If you're not both willing to serve each other without worrying about where the power lies, I think that's a challenge. And it's just become so taken for granted that there's going to be this, power struggle, or that somehow the feminine should always be the one with the power. Like, I was recently at an event and, someone was introducing me and they were like, and, of course, want to thank Vailana. We all know who holds the pants in the family. And I'm like, why do you say that?
Yeah.
Like, why is that the thing do you feel like you have to say that? Because it's not okay for the masculine to be in power? Because this is the trope that the woman always has to be in power? Well, of course not. It doesn't make any sense. Sometimes the woman can be in power, but that means she's expressing her masculine role, which denies her the full fruition of the feminine, which I also think has been, unnecessarily undermined by culture. Like, the message being given to women is, you got to go out there and achieve, and you got to be the boss babe and make your first 100 million and do all that. But that's fine. Great. Go for it. And I love that we have a world where you can. Where it's fully possible. I just interviewed Cody Sanchez. She's freaking killing it.
Yeah.
Is dominating, the business. And that's awesome. But also, in her own, I haven't spent time inside the relationship, but her partner is a Navy SEAL and has everything controlled, really on lock, and so many elements of the masculine. Mm-hmm. So really having that deep reverence for each other and knowing who and how it's going to lead, without making this assumption that the masculine needs to be stripped of all its power because the masculine is unsafe.
Yeah.
And we have a long history of the masculine being unsafe. So I get it. And there's a real rise and return of the sacred masculine, whose whole entire focus is to protect the feminine and those who are innocent and those who don't have strength. And that's like the full fruition of the masculine we see that in all the heroes, the firefighters that rush into a building, the first responders, the soldiers. Granted, the wars that the soldiers are pointed at, I have a lot of questions about, all these wars that we've been in, but the heroic act itself they're fighting for something greater than themselves and willing to put their lives on the line. And again, so can women. Women can also be first responders and heroes. But this idea that the masculine is always dangerous and never safe, it's a really bad trope that I think has extended into society. Mm-hmm. There's other tropes as well. Like if a man is going to have sex with his wife, he's getting lucky. And if a woman is going to have sex with her husband, she's giving it up.
Yeah.
The fuck are we talking about? Is that really how we want to live? Where sex is a chore and a man is lucky to get it with his wife? Like, what is that saying about a relationship? But it's in every sitcom, and it's just, oh yeah, I'm going to get lucky tonight. Get lucky tonight. The hell are we talking about? What kind of relationship is that?
Yeah.
There's some crazy stuff there that really needs to be updated.
I think as you start waking up and healing and doing your own work, you see mainstream society and you see all the misunderstandings and how we got to be where we are. I remember when I was starting to really do some deep work around what is the source of love and waking up to myself, essentially, all of the love songs, I was like, this is insane. We project my source of love onto a partner and then lose that they evoked it in us, but it is what we are.
Yes.
I love that you're poking at some things to help people just have a seed of reflection. And I also know that the masculine and feminine can look different inside everyone's composition. We're going to have different variety of that spectrum, and it's all healthy. And to do the healing work, I think, is really important. But I'm curious, as you're talking, do you feel like it's important for men to get together to do work together just as men, or women just to do work as women in support of their healing path?
I do. I think it's an important way, because especially the thing about men, when any woman is present, it's easy to become a little bit more performative. Mm-hmm. And similarly, I don't know what it's like with women. I'm not a woman, so I can't say, but there could be an element of performative nature when the masculine is present.
It's a different dynamic.
There's a subtly different dynamic. Now, I think you can transcend that, where you're actually super comfortable being, radically vulnerable in front of the feminine. But as like an opening stage before you're comfortable, I think doing the men's work, is really important. And then once you're fully comfortable, whether it's men or women present, then I think it's actually more valuable to do that work, together. But so the way I look at it is it's a beginning stage to open up the levels of comfortability in your vulnerability and move beyond any kind of performative qualities that you're trying to show off for the other sex.
Yeah. Interesting. And we've had Vi on the podcast who I love your wife so much.
I know. She's the best.
I'm curious how she has helped you evolve as a man.
There's a lot of ways in which a partnership brings about, something really beautiful in a relationship. And, Vi for me really unlocked levels of devotion and levels of like love that, I hadn't been able to reach before. And so I think what she offers is an opportunity for me to step into ever greater and ever deeper love. And I think one of the other elements of this is like, what are the technologies, the intimate, erotic technologies that you're using to make sure that your eros, your sexing, doesn't do what, if you read Dr. Wednesday Martin's book, Untrue, you'll see all the graphs where actual sexual desire for a woman falls off a cliff after about 2.5 years.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the actual desire starts to fall off, and men's desire starts to taper off a lot more slowly, but the graphs look different. And so this is what happens naturally, unless you actually learn the ability to find, what Rebbe Gavney would call the stranger in your partner. So it's like locating the stranger again, a new level of depth where you see each other with fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. And so these are the kind of tantric technologies that you can bring, where you can meet each other at a whole new level of depth. And so instead of going out and seeking novelty in an affair or getting in this perpetual, serial monogamy thing where you're just there for the first limerence ride where you're getting to know somebody. And then once you reach that point, you're sick of them, and then you break up, and then you do it again. But if you can actually apply some technology to that, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And, I think that's one thing that Vi and I have really put a lot of focus on.
That's beautiful. That's interesting. I was in a relationship for 3 years, and I don't think the sexuality for me that didn't make sense, but now I've been with my husband for 15, and I feel more attracted, more turned on, more intimately connected. But because we do it, probably some of the work around finding ourselves more deeply, and to do the tantric work and role play and like bring in the fun into it, the creativity.
Yeah.
In terms of your edges around relationship, have you found with Vi or anyone, is there a story that you can share that opened you to push your edge, to go deeper vulnerably, or to look at life in a new way?
Well, I mean, I've always been pushing the edges, right? So I was very public about a polyamorous relationship that I had for about 8 years with my former partner, Whitney Miller. And we decided to, after about 1.5 years, we decided that we were going to open the relationship and be polyamorous, because it made sense to me from, both anthropological records that I'd looked at from Chris Ryan's book, Sex at Dawn. I was like, oh, there was a different way that things can be and could be. And it feels right for my own heart, my heart that is like the sun and feels like it could love universally, and I could fall in love with many people. So I went into that, and, I was the first to have another separate lover, and I was like, this is great. And, Whitney was like, this is terrible. And I was like, what do you mean? This is great. And then I didn't have near the compassion that I should have, because as soon as she took a lover, I went into like the most despondent jealousy. And so, that's been one of the big crucibles for me. Everybody wanted to plaster this idea like, oh, Aubrey, the cuck Norris over here, he's getting off on this. And it's like, I wish, man, I wish, but it was hell. And I had to sit in the fire of that hell until I could actually burn away the jealousy and understand that I'm not actually in competition with anybody in that level. I can compete on the basketball court, but other than that, nobody can be Aubrey Marcus, and nobody can be whoever that other lover might be. So there's no competition. We're our own unique self, and our unique, irreducible essence is what makes us attractive in the first place. So it's really taught me to love and appreciate myself and just measure myself according to how much Aubrey-ness I'm able to step into. So, that relationship kind of established a lot of that. And then, Vi and I have discussed that we have also, something of an unconventional relationship. It's not polyamory, but it's not the traditional type of relationship. And it continually pushes the edges about like, what is possible.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's hard, it's work, and it's beauty, and it's exciting, and it's challenging. But if you go into that with the desire for growth, if evolution and the ability to transcend your own jealousy and understand your own unique, irreducible essence and really trust that, if you go in with that mindset, it can be really, really a valuable tool for growth and also to experience the beauty of life.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I hear you sort of using everyday life for greater healing and awakening. Mm-hmm. What do you feel is the role of spirituality with healing, either the personal or the collective?
Spirituality, I don't think is really optional. Mm-hmm. So I think we've made this like, oh yeah, you can or you can't, but God is like, this is something I know to be true. So to just ignore that God is, call it Great Spirit, call it the universe, call it the Tao, call it, the Buddha, call it the Christ, whatever you want to call it. But I know God has a bad connotation for a lot of people who've had it jammed down their throat and a lot of rules and things that didn't make sense. I started my life as an atheist, but in 25 years of plant medicine, I have no doubt. I don't believe in God. I know God. Right? It's not a question. So if you're living in the world and you're denying something that is true and the fundamental nature of that truth that moves in you, as you, through you, and beyond you, I don't think you can experience the real full spectrum of the healing. Sure, you can do some psychological trauma work, etc. But until, I believe, you're able to connect with spirit, with God, there's going to be so much that you're going to leave off the table. and your life just will not be nearly as rich.
Yeah. I had a mentor say, use the word God until it no longer has trigger or charge.
Yeah.
Thought that was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been very open about your work with psychedelics. My dad's a shaman, so I grew up since I was 14 in that world.
Yeah.
He sold his financial advising firm at 50 and went shamanic, and now has a retreat center up in Mount Shasta. And since I was 14, that's been some of my world.
Yeah.
And I know that you talk a lot about psychedelics. Was there a breakthrough that helped you see life more beautifully for yourself or humanity through psychedelics?
I mean, there's been hundreds.
I bet.
There's been hundreds. It started with my very first one. That was 18 years old. And my dad...
Your first one was 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm 43 now, so that's why it's 25 years. So I went to see a shaman in New Mexico. I was terrified, an atheist.
Yeah.
But I trusted my dad, and I was curious enough. I always had a deep curiosity. So, I said yes, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I was so scared. I remember I grabbed a worn river rock from a pathway, and I brought it, and I was like, as long as I hold this rock, I'll know that I'm still here. And it was a combination of MDMA and a psilocybin tea. And so I experienced this guided by a shaman. She wouldn't call herself a shaman, more of a sitter, but really she was, shamanic in her ability to hold the space. And I experienced my body evaporate, and the only word that I could use for what remained was my soul. And so I experienced my soul self, my higher self, my God self. I experienced that for the first time. And I remember staying up, being warmed by a fire. I was in a small little hut in the mountains north of New Mexico, and just writing and like re-understanding the entire paradigm of what is this crazy existence that we have. And then subsequently through, some 45 ayahuasca experiences, iboga experiences, wachuma experiences, DMT experiences, bufo experiences, like all of the great tons of mushroom experiences, all of these different traditions guided by some of the very best in the world. It's unlocked new ways to look at life. And then I combine that with sitting down with the mystics and those who really understand things from their traditional lens. So whether it's the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, or currently I'm deep in study with the wisdom of Solomon and understanding like those codes from there, deep reverence for the Taoist codes. And so just synthesizing all of the best and actually recognizing there's so much more to understand and available there in these sacred texts and traditions when you can feel it for yourself.
18. Your dad invites you in to do a ceremony. What a gift. Was he exposed to this work?
Yeah, he started. So he was in a battle his whole life, and he had some real darkness that was haunting him. And so he tried everything to try and release that darkness that was hunting him and haunting him and taunting him. He went into a modality called primal therapy, and he had this big padded room, and he would just go in there and yell and scream. But that didn't really work for him. It brought a lot of the anger to the surface, but it didn't transmute it in the full way. So he moved from that. And then he started working with actually the legendary Stan Grof. And through Stan Grof, he did the holotropic breathwork, which helped him a lot. But then there's the next level, which is the psychedelic work. And then so through that kind of underground railroad of shamans that have always been available, he started working with her and then sent me on that journey myself.
It's crazy. Our dads have a very there's a similar thread as well, because I was 14, you were 18. My dad Stan Grof did some of that work, then went into psychedelics with shamans. Like there's some parallels there. Mm-hmm. And what a gift to have a parent that can be honest about their path to invite you into something deeper. Like my whole family had a spiritual awakening at the same time, and we weren't talking to each other about it. And it just, for me, it was just praying to the moon and playing guitar and questioning everything. And but to have a parent that nurtures that and that steers you in the direction of a deeper truth, I think is such a gift.
Totally.
I'm curious, is there something that was revealed to you in a session, in a journey, that you're still integrating now?
The deepest truths are the hardest to actually abide by. And so things get actually much simpler, but much more difficult on the path. Mm-hmm. So you take, Ram Dass's teacher, Maharaj, you take him, and what was his advice? Love everyone, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's something that you'll spend your whole lifetime trying to actually live by. How can you really love everyone without beyond the judgment? And that doesn't mean giving up your discernment, but knowing that even beyond the discernment, even if you're creating a boundary, that you still love everybody outside that boundary. So can you really love, and as Christ said, love your enemy, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because it's a recognition that brother or sister is yourself, just living a different life.
Yeah.
So that is something that's a continual message that's like, okay, all right, I'll continue to work towards that. And then tell the truth. Oh, okay. Well, there's levels of truth, because sometimes you may be telling the truth, but it's actually not the truth because you have so much you can't see that's in your own shadow. And so to actually tell the truth is something that is also very difficult. Now, I have a formula to assess whether you're telling the truth or not.
Truth barometer.
Truth barometer. So here's the formula. It's honesty, which gets a total of 50 points. And so the goal is to get to 100. So if you're going to bring it to 100, right? So 100% truth.
Gamify it. Yeah.
Yeah. So honesty is a score out of 50 points. So how honest are you? Love. How loving are you? That's another 50 points because I don't think you can divorce truth from love because love, truth, and God are actually synonyms as far as I've come to know it. So you get 50 total points of love. So you add those together in a bracket. And then you multiply it by your percentage of certainty. How certain are you that love was at maximum? How certain are you that honesty was at maximum? And then you get a number. So maybe you were, 45 out of 50 honest. You kind of said everything, but not exactly. So you get 45. And then your love, you're like, it was pretty loving. It was 40. So you're at, 85. And then, oh man, I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't know. So maybe my percentage of certainty is, 80%, so then you end up with some number and like, all right, well, I was about 65% true in that, I was at 65 out of 100 points. So but it's a model and of course you're just estimating this based upon your own assessment, but to understand that it's difficult. It's difficult to tell the truth, and you can't divorce truth from love. And so to be in truth is to be in love, and then to also be honest, and then to recognize our own fallibility and our own levels of ignorance of that which we don't know and how certain we actually are.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of my path has been questioning everything. The certainty, it's like a question I'll ask myself is, how much would I be willing to bet somebody's life that I loved on the certainty of that idea? And it's always not. And so I come back to not knowing anything, but I love, in some ways, it's like creating a system, a metric system to ground the evolution of us aligning ego with essence. Because the truth of us is loving already. And our ego sometimes has barriers to seeing that and recognizing and owning it. So I hear love everyone. And I love the projection work, like really seeing everyone as a mirror and tell the truth. There's a woman who invited me to do the Truth Project, which was like 30 days speaking radical truth to everyone. And that was confronting. And I think of myself as somebody very honest. And I think I need to restart it because if you even have a slightest white lie, like you got to call yourself back into truth. So this is inspiring me to do that again.
I think it's the time. I think this is the era of honesty.
That's right.
I really think this is time. We've gone through a period of so much social pressure where if you have a dissonant opinion to the public and to the, technocratic overlords, you could get your, accounts, removed, your posts removed, descheduled, fact checked, all of this kind of censorship, which taught us internally to censor our opinions and feelings. And I think, we're entering a world in which we're going to be free to express honestly. And I think this is going to be, this is what I see is our own Excalibur. It's our sword. It's the sword of truth and love. And I really feel like, one of the places that I can step into is to really try to lead by example there and just get to full honesty.
Yeah.
And recognize the difference of when I'm being Aubrey or when I'm playing Aubrey.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to play the character of yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have to look back and was like, wait, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Was that really me?
Yeah.
Or was I just playing Aubrey?
Yeah. For me, like I love that. And I'll have a compassionate lens for the part of me that was scared, that was pretending,
For sure.
creating that mask. But I would rather somebody's truth over a lie any day. Doesn't matter what it is. I want to know what's true. And I feel like there's a deeper intimacy and connection that comes from that.
It's the only way to intimacy and connection. Let's say you're projecting an avatar. Well, somebody may fall in love with that avatar, but guess what? You're not going to feel it because you're not the avatar. So you may get somebody to love a projection of you, but you'll never feel it.
That's right.
So the intimacy is never going to be there. So particularly in your romantic partnerships, like being able to share everything and have that held by your partner, that's really what's going to allow the crucible of transformation to occur. It's like, how honest can you be? And the more honest you are, the more intimate you'll become. And
with the right tools and ways to communicate. Yeah. I want to shift the direction a little bit because I know you've had a lot of success with your work, and I'm sure there's behind the scenes of some losses, wins and losses. What was one of the most challenging but rewarding parts of your entrepreneurial journey?
It's all challenging.
Yeah.
It's all challenging. I think if I look back, what would I have done different is I would have enjoyed the process a little bit more. You can get so focused on the goal and the outcome and so afraid of, the success that you're experiencing, afraid of it going away. I woke up every morning wondering, how, and part of this is the function of a CEO, right, is to be looking outside for the dangers that may come. But I was so focused on looking at the dangers that I'd hardly spent the appropriate amount of time being in the joy of actually doing what I loved and creating that company on it, which was an expression of who I really was, at least on one vector in the total human optimization, kind of category. So, and you're going to have to weather a lot of storms. You're going to have to believe in yourself. You're going to have to stand up to people who don't see what you see, and then also listen to people who have wise advice. So, I think I learned a lot through my experience in building on it from 2011 to 2021 when we sold, had a huge success. And then I got way too cocky and thought I had the Midas touch and I could do anything. And, I've experienced a lot of losses since then. But I've learned a lot from all of those. And, so, as I go into this next wave of ventures, there's both a deep humility, but also still having that kind of innocent and pure audacity and vision to say, like, I see what's possible here. And there's something really great that's possible.
I love that you even took the silver lining in right after selling on it and having some of the humility come, because that helps come back into balance. So the way that you're even orienting and framing it, I think is helpful for people to be like, okay, I can have a healthy relationship with success and failure.
Yep.
They don't define me, but they're here as gifts, as offerings. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that people will say is that everything happens for a reason. I think that's only true if you give everything that happens a reason.
That's right. Yep.
So it's like, it's not like, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. No, maybe not. Maybe you made a dumb choice and you could have done better. But you didn't.
Yes.
So now what's the lesson you can learn? So it's interesting. It's both. It's a bit of a paradox. Hafiz said, wherever you are right now, God circled that place on a map for you. And if you believe that, then it's true. Because if you believe that, then you're like, okay, what can I do from this position that I'm in? Because that's the choice that we have. We can't go back in the past and change anything. But if you say, right here where I am, this is where I'm supposed to be. And now let's see where I can go from here.
Yeah. It's like choosing to use everything for your growth and healing. I look at life that way, relationships and business. But with business, I think of like, as we keep growing ourselves, we're going to hit up against resistance. And so if we want to grow with more grace, we have to learn how to dance with resistance. And one thing that I found really helpful is to support the defense. So like, for example, somebody comes to see me, they want to help growing their business, but they're afraid of being seen. They've got this push-pull going on. Instead of trying to resist that, it's just offering ourselves compassion. So maybe there's a part of them that wants to hide, like letting them hide for just 2 minutes, that part of them to feel safe, because love embraces and welcomes all of it. And as that's integrated, it no longer takes power, and then we can grow, right? We can take the lead. Or like the example of, imagine that my hand was a piece of paper and resistance is my fist. It's kind of like a keto. If I punch, there's no hurt because it just moves through.
Mm-hmm.
But if I resist, if I'm defensive and there's a punch, that moment of impact is what hurts.
Yep.
And so with resistance and your ability to take life and learn from all of it, what have you found as practices, like go-to habits to support moving through resistance within yourself when it comes up?
Well, I think you have to banish the shame that you have. So there's a difference between guilt and shame. So guilt is the recognition that you did something wrong, that you did something that you could have done better. You weren't compassionate in this instant. You allowed your emotions to get the better. You weren't kind. You weren't loving. You got selfish or greedy. You were dishonest. I think there's the guilt in those experiences can be healthy because it's a recognition of, damn, I could have done better. But shame is not that you did something bad. It's that you are bad. Oh, I am bad. And then if you are bad, you can't hold that.
Yeah.
You can't hold that. A human being can't hold the feeling of them being bad. So they'll put the shame in the shadow. They'll put that thing in the shadow. So it'll be all justifications. It'll be like, well, that person deserved it, or, well, I was so stressed, or, well, but if you're able actually to love yourself no matter what, allow yourself to repair what you're guilty for and say like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like I could have done that way better.
Yeah.
But that prevents you from getting into this place of shame where you think that you're really a bad person. And that's something that's unable to hold. And that's what creates and expands the shadow, that which you cannot see. Shame is like the blanket over the sun. And so if you're able to love yourself and acknowledge when you're off course or wrong, and then repair whatever you need to repair, then you can really move forward in your evolution in a big way. And for the coaches out there, like one of the greatest gifts you can give is to humanize yourself and not pretend that you got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, me too. I remember I was in a deep psychedelic journey and I experienced the spirit of Yeshua who came there, and I just felt Yeshua's presence there. And I just started expressing all of the challenges, all of everything. It was like, I don't know, some confessionary energy just moved through me. And I was expressing all of these things. And Yeshua was just there in my vision space, just patiently listening. And then he just looks at me and he goes, me too. Oh. And I was just like, wow. Tears and tears and tears. And then there was nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say. And it was like one of the most profound experiences, like me too. And when we can do that, it's also the wisdom of the Hawaiian kahunas and the Ho'oponopono, where whatever you see in another, you can locate that thing in yourself and then actually work to heal that thing in yourself, to actually heal that in the person that you're with. So these deeper mystical traditions and truths, a lot of them are pointing to this radical honesty with yourself and just acknowledging, and I think, for better or worse, I've experienced a lot of the different, challenges. I've experienced jealousy and I've experienced rage. I've experienced addiction. I've experienced a lot of these things, and I'm comfortable talking about them because I'm not the person I was when I experienced those things. I'm the person who grew from those experiences. So allowing yourself to be almost reborn anew. Another one of my favorite quotes from Heraclitus: no person steps in the same river twice, because it's not the same river and not the same person. And so just allowing yourself to be free, not shackled by who you have been, but to step into this new life that you are in. Yeah.
I really hear separating who you are with what you do. So there's no identity in it, and just giving yourself compassion, like self-compassion, and to know that we're all in it together. There's no idea of perfection, but that love that embraces, I think that's the same. We've kind of said it in the same way, like that when resistance comes up, like the love that says yes to all of it is what settles it. Yeah. And not to do it with that agenda, because then it actually doesn't feel fully accepted. It's like, I'm going to love it so that it goes away. But it's just this humility of like, okay, that's exactly where I'm at. And it doesn't mean anything about me.
Yeah. And I think you can also say, that's exactly where I was.
Yeah.
I'm not what I did.
Yeah.
At some level, you are what you do. Like you are what you repeatedly do, but you're not what you repeatedly did. You can change that at any point in time.
Paradox. Yeah.
And that's the paradox. So like, whatever it was, it's worthy of love, and you can do better too. And you can still be on that quest of, evolution and transformation, where you'll be capable of doing more and more beautiful things. So it's not that you're completely divorced from your being and becoming and what you are and what you do. That is a part of you, but you're not what you did. Not if you're growing, not if you're transforming. And this possibility of transformation, I think, is at the core of it has to be at the core of any coach or anybody in any relationship, that you hold out the possibility for transformation and you see that transformation in the person. So if you're able to see, not to freeze them in the difficult moments, their moments of failure or fault. I mean, I think we do that in relationship too. It's like somebody does something that, really hurts you. You can freeze them in that moment. Oh, that's the type of person they are.
Yeah. Well,
that's something that happened in the past that they did, but there's a possibility of transformation. And I think that's even with our whole, penal system, like the way that our whole justice system is arranged. It's more like, yes, all right, potentially there's consequences to the actions, but the goal should be, how do we transform? How do we rally behind and transform those individuals so that when they leave prison and when they're leaving the punishment that they received, that they can actually grow, and that we give them an opportunity to grow. Like we give them that benefit of the doubt. And sometimes, you can't, sometimes things are too deep. If you have a pedophilic nature, you can't just say and just send them into a box for a couple of years without any deep therapy and let them go.
Expect it to be different.
That's silly.
Yeah.
So I think we need to just be real honest with what we're doing to help people transform.
That's a great point, and I very much align with that. But the shame is what repeats the cycle of addiction, of any type of unhealthy behavior. That's not actually the problem. There's something deeply rooted in the addiction, or whatever the expression of that is the result, not the root. And so really helping let go of the shame, forgiving ourselves, being in community and having therapy and really starting to integrate into the world and being of service. I think I just want to double click. I'm a stand for that. And I think more of us, the micro and macro, as we start to experience that within inside of ourselves, we can see how it can shift in our government, in our world, but through that love. And yes, there's choices and consequences, but who they are is not bad. Maybe their behavior was bad and there's consequences to that. But to really help them integrate in society takes love and takes healing work.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I've also come to know in my own, 25 years of experiential spirituality is there are dark forces in us, as us, through us, and beyond us, just as they're divine forces. And these dark forces are both us and not us. And they can seduce us and capture us, in many, many different ways. And to be aware, I call this force anti-you. So in the highest level, so there's lots of names from lots of traditions. Stephen Pressfield, the great author, wrote it and called it resistance with a capital R. Phil Stutz, the psychiatrist, calls it part X. The Kabbalists call it Sitra Achra. The Toltecs call it the parasite or the predator. There's this
pain body, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. There's these. We all have this idea, but I don't think we give it enough credit, that there's a force that will try to pull against our actualization. And the closer you are to the actualization, the closer you are to the candle, the greater the shadow that's cast, the greater the energy that's pulling you away. There's a quote from Virgil, and if you'll pardon me opening my phone, because I don't have it fully memorized yet, because I just learned it. The gates of hell are open night and day, smooth the descent and easy is the way. But to return and view the cheerful skies, there the task, the mighty labor lies. So there's forces that'll try and seduce you into a darker path, and to just be aware that there's an opponent in this game of life. And, you'll find it in yourself, but you'll find it outside of yourself as well. And if you take that appropriately, it's like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They were opponents, but they made each other better. It's like, if you take that, okay, like I see you, I see you, devil. I see you, anti-you. And, we're going to contest. And, if I take that attitude, you will help bring out the best in me. And that's why this force exists.
The contrast.
The contrast to help us grow. it's the iron that sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing to be afraid of. Because I think that if somebody were to hear that, they might get fearful. And yet when we're in fear, we're giving our energy to something that doesn't have as much power.
And that's one of the great tricks. The great tricks of the dark forces is to try and convince you that it's more powerful than you are. Mm-hmm. But it's not.
Yeah.
God is way more powerful. Love is way more powerful. Nothing can touch.
That's right.
Nothing can touch that energy. So if you really trust that, you're going to be safe wherever you go.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. One thought that you brought up that I heard was talking about just in society, we have this unconscious belief that there's going to be a moment when we arrive in our life somewhere where it's going to be enough. And I think a lot of people they project that onto money, thinking, okay, finally, when I arrive there, thinking that we are going to lack our way into abundance. But this, like, when I get there mentality just there's like a moving target, and that filter gets projected from one goal to another. Mm-hmm. And I even think this unconscious belief gets projected onto spirituality. Like, there's finally going to be a moment where I arrive, like enlightenment. Right. I'm wondering if there's an area in your life where you've sort of woken up out of that misunderstanding, and if there's an area you're still combing through.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always more.
Yeah.
There's always more. I remember, I sold on it. And, got a huge payout, like ridiculous, just looked in my bank account one day and was like, oh my God, like this is a crazy amount of money. And the interesting thing is that I immediately, because there was a sense of scarcity actually that I fought with and dealt with, but it was still present even in that moment of having all of this money. It still didn't feel like it was like I was going to be safe and I was going to be enough. So I started acting out of fear even then, and out of scarcity even then. And there's studies that show that no matter how wealthy a person is, they don't actually feel safe. They always say, if I just had 30% more money, I'd be safe. So whether they're 10 million, 100 million, a billion, there's some way in which it's not enough because the mind plays those tricks. But if you could actually learn that wherever you are, whatever you have is enough. And it applies to spirituality and applies to money, but really this is an attitude thing. Mm-hmm. And then the abundance that you hold will actually facilitate the growth and the ability to steward more. But that was a key moment for me and I'm looking back and being like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, wow, what was that? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's a mindset. Yeah. Because the safety or the feeling of, will I be okay, is more of an inner game. And we've been conditioned through society to think something outside of partnership, an amount of money, health goal will then finally make us enough. And I think for me, the work that I've done is just to really welcome that part of me that has a misunderstanding that safety is anywhere other than right here. Mm-hmm. And to really question the ideas that I've been conditioned to believe has been really powerful. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's, just in closing, a time where you felt broken, but that experience helped you serve others more deeply because of it.
Every time I've been broken, it's helped me serve others more. When I've found myself in the throes of addiction, now I understand anybody who's an addict. If I found myself in the throes of jealousy, now I understand anybody who's jealous. If I found myself in the depths of despair and depression and hopelessness, now I understand how I can support people in despair, depression, and hopelessness. And, so all of these experiences that you have can then allow you to connect with somebody and be, imitatio Christi, like the same thing that Yeshua said to me. I can do my best to imitate that no matter what someone's going through, and say like, yeah, me too. Maybe not specifically, maybe I didn't experience the same trauma or the sexual abuse or what it is, but I've experienced enough that I can at the very least imagine what you're going through. But in some specific cases, I've actually already been through it. And there will be other people that say it is sexual abuse, like the people who've actually experienced that. That's going to be the best person to guide whoever that is through that process. So, I'm probably not the best person to guide through that because I haven't experienced it. And, mm-hmm. God willing, I never will on either side. So in this, I think there's a great gift that's hidden in the curse. And I think if you have that attitude, the stoic attitude, the attitude of a warrior, which is someone who's willing to actually, grow from the experience, it can really help you connect to whoever it is you're here to help.
And I love that you speak to that, because I think there's a lot of people that are called to be of service and they think, oh, I went through a divorce or I had an addiction and how can I help other people? But really that is their resume, them going through it,
Right.
them walking the path. I would rather have somebody hold space for me that is willing to meet their shadow and have their life is their resume.
Yeah.
That they can have compassion and greater serve others because of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that's like so obvious. Like imagine you were going to war, like actual war. And you have two different people who are going to be your leaders. One's fresh out of West Point, never seen a day of battle, but knows all the strategy and tactics. Another's some grizzled veteran who's just been in the fight, wears all the scars. This is where the shrapnel hit me. This is where the bullet hit me. This is where my tank got blown up. And this is where, like, you're going to trust that person who's been in the shit rather than someone who's read books about it.
Yeah.
Same with business. Like there's a lot of people who have high degrees of education and MBAs and have studied these things, but I'd much rather trust someone who's actually been in the game and taken the wins and taken the losses, because there's just something that you get from experience that you can't get entirely from reading about it.
Yeah. And you just want to be a few steps ahead of whoever you're serving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And there's always going to be some level of this idea of imposter syndrome is something that prevents people like, well, I don't have of course, if you're pushing your own edges, if you're actually stepping into even greater, you're going to be in somewhat unknown territory. But it's like, take the leap, salto mortale, like leap into the void and offer the best you can, but with humility. And that's going to help people more than anything.
100%. I feel your warrior. I feel your poet. I feel a deeper sense of authenticity in your presence, even just as I connect with you. So thank you for this gift. And I know my audience is going to want to stay connected. Tell us about what you're up to. Tell us how they stay connected.
Yeah, for sure. It's such an exciting period right now. So Fit for Service is coming to a close. So that's no longer available. I'm starting a new group called the Round Table, which is, there'll be some information out there, but it's going to be a kind of a different orientation. But there'll be some information if you're curious. And those for people who really have a deep desire and the ability to impact the world in a significant way. When we all impact the world, it doesn't mean that just because you have greater influence, it means you're less important than another person. But in this container, it's about how do we really move culture in the biggest, most dramatic way possible. So it's for people who want to play big.
Yeah.
And that's called the Round Table, coming soon. I got a new poetry book, my first one.
What?
Coming out, called Love to the Seventh Power.
Oh,
so
I love
that's going to be out in January. So pre-sales will come up soon. But keep a lookout for Love to the Seventh Power. And if you want to just track everything I'm doing, you can just follow me on Instagram at Aubrey Marcus. And then my big book, which feels like my opus, even though I wrote a New York Times bestselling book already, this book I feel like is so far, the greatest contribution that I can make. And it's called You versus Anti-You. And that'll be out, all things go well, in late 2025.
I cannot wait to dive in. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for the embodiment of the man that you are in this world.
Thank you for seeing me, sis. Yeah, It's been great to get to know you more.
Same. Thank you so much for doing this work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a difference. And if you're finding value in this podcast, a cost-free way to support us is by leaving an up to 5-star review. It does mean the world to us. And as a thank you gift, we're going to send you one of the most powerful tools that you will ever discover. You're going to get behind the scenes access showing you how to live into your full potential without letting fear hold you back from stepping into your dreams. Just head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave a review now. You can take a screenshot before hitting submit and then go to alyssanobriga.com/podcast to upload it. And make sure to have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much magic I can't wait to share with you. And you can find all this information in the show notes below. But lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello. I'm at Alyssa Nobriga. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you.